The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was filled with thousands of beings from across the galaxy. They came in all shapes and sizes. Some had scales. Some had wings. Some floated in special tanks filled with liquid. They were the representatives of the Galactic Assembly, and today they had gathered to decide the fate of an entire world. On the massive holographic screen above them,
alligator grass.
Images of a dying planet played in a loop. Valorith Prime had once been beautiful. Its crystal cities had glowed with soft blue and purple light. Its people, the Velarai, had been known throughout the galaxy as healers and teachers. Their bodies produced a gentle glow. Their medical knowledge had saved countless lives across hundreds of worlds. But now, Valorith Prime was dark. A terrible disease called the Shadow Blight had swept across the planet like fire through dry grass. Millions had already died. The survivors were growing weaker every day. High Arbiter, Kethvorin, rose from his seat at the center of the hall. He was an ancient being, nearly 3,000 years old. And he had enforced galactic law longer than most species had existed. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "The Assembly has reviewed all evidence," he said. "The Shadow Blight cannot be stopped. It cannot be cured. If we allow ships to leave Valorith Prime, the disease will spread to other worlds. Billions more will die." The hall fell silent. Everyone knew what was coming. Under Extinction Protocol 7, the High Arbiter continued. "The Valorith system will be placed under permanent quarantine. No ships may enter or leave. No aid will be sent. The Velarai will be contained until the disease has run its course." A murmur spread through the crowd. The words sounded clean and official, but everyone understood what they really meant. 8 billion Velarai would be left to die, alone, without help. Without hope. "The Assembly will now vote," said the High Arbiter. One by one, the species cast their votes. The Krethian Dominion voted yes. The Nexari Federation voted yes. The Tolith Empire voted yes. 147 species voted to abandon the Velarai to their fate. Only one species voted no. Ambassador Sarah Okonkwo stood alone in the human section of the hall. She was a tall woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice was strong when she spoke. "This is wrong," she said. "We cannot simply watch 8 billion innocent people die without even trying to help them. The Velarai have saved lives across this galaxy for thousands of years. They deserve better than this." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Some of the older species shook their heads with amusement. Humanity had only been part of galactic civilization for 60 years. They were still young. They did not understand how the universe worked. High Arbiter Kethferon looked at the human ambassador with cold eyes. "Your compassion is noted, Ambassador, but the law is clear. Any species that violates the quarantine will face severe consequences. Trade sanctions, technology embargoes, perhaps even expulsion from the Assembly itself." Campador Okonkwo did not back down. "And if we do nothing, what does that make us?" The High Arbiter had no answer for that. The vote was final. The quarantine began immediately. Automated sentinel stations were deployed around the entire Velarath system. Any ship that approached would be destroyed without warning. A fleet from the Krethian Dominion took position at the edge of the system to enforce the blockade. The Velarai were sealed in their tomb. Ambassador Okonkwo returned to Earth 3 days later. She delivered her report to the United Earth Council in a room full of politicians and military leaders. They argued for hours about consequences and galactic standing. Some wanted to protest through official channels. Others wanted to simply accept the Assembly's decision and move on. But in a small apartment on the other side of the world, someone had already made her decision. Captain Alina Vance sat in the darkness, watching the Assembly recording for the 10th time. She was 42 years old, with short dark hair and scars on her hands from years of hard work in space. She had commanded the deep space vessel Prometheus for 5 years, running exploration missions to the edges of known space. But before that, she had served in the Frontier Wars. And during those terrible years, when a wound had left her dying in a destroyed ship, it was a Velarai healer who had saved her life. The gentle being had worked for 16 hours straight, They're using techniques that human medicine could not match. Refusing to give up even when everyone else had, Alina still remembered the Velaray's words. Every life matters. Every single one. Now the galaxy had decided that 8 billion Velaray lives did not matter at all. Alina turned off the recording and made a call. Within an hour, her crew had gathered in her apartment. They were good people. Loyal people. They had followed her through asteroid fields and solar storms. But what she was about to ask them was different. The Assembly has abandoned the Velaray, she said. They are going to die alone on their world unless someone helps them. I am going to help them. I am going to break the quarantine, reach Valorith Prime, and do whatever I can to save whoever I can. She paused and looked at each of them in turn. This is not an order. This is a request. If we do this, we will be criminals. The galaxy will hunt us. We may never come home again. If any of you want to walk away, I understand. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They simply looked back at her with steady eyes. Her first officer, a young man named David, finally broke the silence. Captain, when do we leave? Over the next 2 weeks, Alina contacted everyone she knew. Smugglers who knew hidden routes through space, scientists who understood alien diseases, former soldiers who were not afraid of a fight. One by one, they agreed to join her mission. The galaxy said saving the Velaray was impossible. Humanity was about to prove the galaxy wrong. On the night before they were scheduled to launch, Lena received an encrypted message. It came from inside the quarantine zone, bounced through a dozen relay stations to avoid detection. The message was from a Velaray scientist named Luminara. She was one of the survivors, trapped on her dying world with no way to escape. Her words were desperate but clear. Please, the message said. If anyone can hear this, we need help. The disease is spreading faster than we thought, but we found something. Something important. Please hurry. The message ended with a set of coordinates and 6 final words. We found something. Please hurry. Lena stared at the message for a long time. Then she stood up, walked to her ship, and began the final preparations. Tomorrow, she would break every law the galaxy had ever written, and she would do it gladly. The galaxy abandoned them to die. Humans broke every law to rescue them. Part 2. The gathering stormed 3 weeks after the Assembly's vote. A secret base had been built on Titan, the largest moon of Saturn. It was hidden deep inside an old mining facility that the galaxy's sensors could not detect. Here, Captain Elena Vance assembled the most unlikely rescue team in human history. The crew gathered in a cold metal room, their breath forming small clouds in the air. They came from different backgrounds, different countries, different lives, but they all shared one thing. They refused to let innocent people die without a fight. Dr. Marcus Chen was a brilliant scientist who studied alien biology. His research partner had been a Velaray named Solith, and they had worked together for 7 years. When the Shadow Blight came, Marcus had watched through a video screen as Solith grew weaker and weaker, till one day the screen went dark forever. Marcus had not slept well since then. He was here to find a cure or die trying. Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka was the best pilot in human space. She had once served in the Earth's Defense Force, flying combat missions against pirates and raiders. Now she worked as a smuggler, moving cargo through routes that official ships could not follow. She knew every hidden path, every secret passage, every gap in the galactic sensor network. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov was a large man with thick hands and a gentle heart. He could fix anything. Give him a broken engine, and he would make it run better than new. He had built half the systems on the Prometheus himself, and he loved that ship like a child. Specialist Amara Diallo was quiet and serious. She had worked in intelligence for 10 years, learning how to hide, how to listen, how to find things that others wanted to keep secret. Her job on this mission was simple. Keep them invisible, Dr. Zara say. Was a medical doctor who had spent her career treating patients in the most dangerous places on Earth. War zones. Disaster areas. Places where death was always close. She had volunteered for this mission the moment she heard about it. When Alina asked her why, she simply said because they need a doctor. Elena looked at her team and felt something warm in her chest. Pride, perhaps? Or hope? Here is the situation, she said, pointing at a holographic map of the Velarath system. The Galactic Assembly has surrounded the planet with automated sentinel stations. These are armed platforms that will destroy any ship that comes close. Beyond that, there is a fleet of Krethian warships standing guard. They have orders to kill anyone who tries to break the quarantine. The map zoomed in, showing the dense web of defenses around the dying world. Going through the front door is impossible, Alina continued. So we are going through the back door. Yuki stepped forward, her dark eyes bright with excitement. During the early days of human space travel, our explorers found a network of ancient wormholes. These tunnels through space are older than the assembly itself. Most species have forgotten they exist. I have been mapping them for years. She pressed a button, and new lines appeared on the map. Thin pathways that twisted through the darkness, bypassing the blockade entirely. The passages are unstable, Yuki admitted. Ships have been lost in them before. But if we are careful, we can reach Velarath Prime without the Krethians ever knowing we were there. Marcus nodded slowly. And once we arrive, what then? Alina pulled up the message from Luminara again. The Velarai scientist says she found something. Something important about the disease. We need to reach her, find out what she knows, and see if there is any way to help the survivors. How many survivors are there? Asked Zara. We do not know for certain. The last estimates said a few 100,000, scattered across the planet. But that was 2 weeks ago. The number may be much lower now. Silence fell over the room. A few 100,000 out of 8 billion? The scale of death was almost impossible to understand. Dmitri broke the silence with his deep voice. The Prometheus is ready. I have upgraded the shields and modified the engines. She will hold together. I promise. Alina smiled at him. I know she will. But their planning was interrupted by an alarm from Amara's console. Her fingers flew across the controls, her face growing pale. We have a problem, she said. The Assembly has sent someone to investigate human activity in this sector. His name is Inquisitor Thexarn. The name sent a chill through the room. Even Yuki, who feared nothing, looked uncomfortable. Inquisitor Thexarn was the Assembly's most feared enforcer. He had destroyed entire colonies that violated quarantine laws. He did not arrest people. He did not negotiate. He simply eliminated threats to galactic order, quickly and completely. He knows we are planning something, Amara continued. He is monitoring all human communications. If we launch, he will know. Alina considered this for a long moment. Then she shook her head. It does not matter. Every day we wait, more Velarai die. We launch tomorrow. That night, Marcus stayed up late, working on his research. He had been analyzing the data from Luminar's message, looking for any clue about what she had discovered. Finally, near midnight, he found it. Hidden in the message was additional information, encrypted so carefully that only human technology could decode it. As the data appeared on his screen, Marcus felt his heart stop. The shadow blight was not natural. The disease had been engineered. Someone had created it deliberately. The genetic markers proved it beyond any doubt. This was not a random plague. This was a weapon. Someone had tried to murder an entire species. Marcus ran to find Alina when she saw the evidence, her hands curled into fists. Who did this? She demanded. I do not know yet, Marcus admitted. But Luminara does. That is what she found. That is why she needs our help so desperately. Alina stared at the data for a long time. When she looked up, her eyes were hard as stone. Tomorrow we launch. And when we find out who did this, they will answer for what they have done. The next morning, the Prometheus lifted off from Titan's surface and headed toward the first wormhole junction. The ship was small against the vast darkness of space, carrying just 6 humans on a mission that the entire galaxy said was impossible. Amara's equipment picked up a transmission just as they reached the wormhole entrance. Inquisitor Thexarn had discovered their departure. The Krethian fleet was mobilizing. Every ship in the sector was hunting for them. Alina stood on the bridge, watching the swirling chaos of the wormhole ahead. Behind her, her crew waited in silence. "They want to stop us," she said quietly. "The Assembly. The Crethions. The entire galaxy is telling us to turn back." She turned to face her team, and her voice grew strong. "But we are not doing this for the galaxy. We are doing this for the people the galaxy abandoned. We are doing this because it is right, and nothing in the universe is going to stop us." The Prometheus dove into the wormhole. Behind them, warning lights flashed across every sensor station in the sector. The hunt had begun. The galaxy abandoned them to die. Humans broke every law to rescue them. Part 3. Into the dying light, the Prometheus emerged from the wormhole like a stone thrown from a river. The ship was damaged. Warning lights flashed across every console. The hull had cracks in 3 places. But they were alive, and they were inside the quarantine zone. Elena gripped her chair as the ship steadied itself. Through the view screen, she saw Velarath Prime for the first time. Once, this world had been beautiful. Old recordings showed cities of living crystal that glowed with blue and purple light, forests of silver trees, oceans that sparkled like liquid gems. The Velari had built a paradise. Now there was only darkness. The crystal cities had gone silent. Their light was dead. Orbital stations floated empty in space, their crews long gone. Emergency beacons flashed uselessly into the void, calling for help that would never come. "Life signs?" Alina asked quietly. Amara checked her sensors. "Very few. Most of the population centers are ... empty, but I am detecting a cluster of survivors in the northern mountains. That matches Luminara's coordinates." Zara stared at the dark planet with tears in her eyes. 8 billion people lived here. 8 billion. "And some still do," Elena said firmly. "Let's go save them." Yuki guided the damaged ship through the atmosphere. The air outside was poisoned with the shadow blight. Anyone who stepped outside without protection would be dead within hours. Dmitri worked constantly, sealing the hull cracks and checking the environmental systems. They landed near a mountain facility, half hidden beneath stone and ice. It was an old research station built to withstand natural disasters. Now it was the last shelter of a dying people. The crew put on protective suits and stepped outside. The world was silent. No birds sang. No wind blew through the trees. Everything was still and cold and dead. A door opened in the mountainside, and a figure stepped out to meet them. Luminara was a Velari elder, tall and thin, with skin that should have glowed with soft light. But her glow was weak now, flickering like a candle about to die. The disease was killing her slowly, just as it had killed her world, but her eyes were still bright with intelligence and hope. "You came," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "We sent the message, but we did not truly believe anyone would come. The galaxy abandoned us." Lena removed her helmet, ignoring the risk. She wanted Luminara to see her face, to see that humans were real, that they cared. "We are not the galaxy," Elena said simply. "We are humans, and we do not abandon people." Luminara led them inside the facility. 200 Velari survivors waited there, all that remained of a great civilization. Some were too weak to stand. Others tended the sick with gentle hands, even though they were dying themselves. The humans stared in silence. The sight broke something inside each of them. Marcus was the first to speak. "Show me what you found. The cure. Show me everything." Luminara took him to her laboratory, where screens displayed genetic data and chemical formulas. She explained what she had discovered during months of desperate research. "The shadow blight is not natural," she said. "Look at these markers. This disease was created, engineered. Someone designed it specifically to kill my people."
Ow.
Marcus studied the data carefully. His expertise in alien biology allowed him to see what others could not. Luminara was right. The plague was a weapon. "But there is hope," Luminara continued. "I found a protein sequence that can neutralize the disease. Our bodies cannot produce it. Our technology cannot synthesize it, but yours can." She pulled up another screen, showing complex biological formulas. Human immune systems are different from ours. Your bodies can create antibodies that we cannot. If a human were infected with a modified version of the Shadow Blight, their immune system would produce the proteins we need. We could harvest those proteins and create a cure. Marcus understood immediately what she was asking. Someone would need to be infected, deliberately, and it would be dangerous. The human might not survive. Lena stepped forward. I will do it, Marcus said firmly. You are the captain. They need you to lead. I will do it. I am a scientist. I understand the risks better than anyone. Alina wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in his eyes. She remembered that Marcus had lost someone to this plague. A friend. A partner. He needed to do this. Are you sure? She asked. Marcus nodded. I have never been more sure of anything. Zara prepared the procedure while Marcus lay down on a medical table. Luminara stood beside him, her flickering glow warming his face. Thank you, she whispered. Your people barely know us. Why do you risk so much? Marcus smiled weakly. Because my friend Soleth once told me that every life matters. Every single one. I did not forget. The injection went into his arm and Marcus closed his eyes as the modified disease entered his body. Within minutes, his fever began to rise. His immune system was fighting, producing the antibodies they needed, but the process was dangerous. His body was under tremendous stress. Zara watched his vital signs with growing concern. He's getting worse, she said. His temperature is too high. If this continues, his organs will fail. Outside, something else was happening. Amara's equipment picked up signals from the edge of the system. Ships. Dozens of them. A Krethian fleet was entering the quarantine zone. Inquisitor. Dexarn had found them. Alina ran to the communication console and heard the Inquisitor's voice. Cold and cruel, broadcasting across all frequencies. Human vessel, you have violated quarantine law. Every soul in this system is now marked for termination. Surrender, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and I will make examples of you all. Elena looked at her crew. At Luminara and the dying Velarai. At Marcus, who was sacrificing himself to save strangers. Yuki, she said quietly. Take the Prometheus up. Draw them away from this facility. Give Marcus the time he needs. Yuki hesitated. Captain, if I do that, I may not be able to come back for you, I know. Elena put her hand on Yuki's shoulder. Do it anyway. Yuki nodded once, then ran for the ship. Within minutes, the Prometheus lifted off and flew toward the Krethian fleet, alone against an armada. On the surface, explosions began to shake the mountains as the Krethians started bombing the planet. They were not just enforcing quarantine anymore. They were trying to destroy everything. Zara shouted a warning. Marcus is crashing. His heart cannot take the strain. Luminara pushed forward, placing her hands on Marcus's chest. Her fading glow began to pulse, pouring into him like water into dry earth. My people have a technique, she said. We can share our life energy with others. I have never done it with a human before. I do not know if it will work. Try, Elena begged. Please try. Luminara closed her eyes and gave everything she had. Other Velarai survivors gathered around, adding their faint light to hers. Humans and Velarai, working together, fighting for one man's life. Above them, Yuki's voice crackled through the radio, filled with fierce joy. Come and get me, you monsters. Show me what you have got. The Prometheus danced through weapons fire, buying precious seconds with every impossible maneuver. On the table, Marcus's heart stopped. Luminara's glow grew brighter. Brighter than it had been in months. Live, she commanded. And somewhere in the darkness, single heartbeat answered. The galaxy abandoned them to die. Humans broke every law to rescue them part. For the price of compassion in the skies above, Velaroth Prime. The Prometheus flew like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Yuki pushed the ship beyond its limits, spinning and diving through a storm of weapons fire. The Krethian fleet outnumbered her 50-1, but she did not care about numbers. She only cared about time. Every second she survived was another second for the people. Below, Dimitri's voice crackled through the speakers, calm despite the chaos. Shield generators failing. Rerouting power from life support. Do it, Yuki said, her hands flying across the controls. We do not need to breathe. We need to fly. A missile exploded against the hull, throwing the ship sideways. Warning alarms screamed. But Yuki steadied the vessel and kept moving, always moving, never giving the enemy a clear shot. On the surface, in the mountain facility, Marcus opened his eyes. His body ached. His skin was covered in sweat. His heart felt like it had been torn apart and put back together wrong. But he was alive, and Luminara was smiling at him with tears streaming down her face. It worked, she whispered. Your body is producing the antibodies. We can make the cure. Zara was already drawing blood samples, her hands shaking with exhaustion and relief. I need more time to synthesize enough for everyone. At least 3 hours. We'll have it, Elena said. Whatever it takes. But as Marcus slowly sat up, his scientist's mind was still working. He looked at the genetic data on the screens, really looked at it for the first time since his fever began. And suddenly, he saw something he had missed before. Wait, he said. These markers. I recognize them. Luminara frowned. What do you mean? Marcus pulled up the analysis, comparing the Shadowblight's genetic code to databases from across the galaxy. His face grew pale as the results appeared. The disease was not just engineered, he said slowly. It was made using Krethian biotechnology. These genetic sequences match classified Krethian weapons research. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Krethians created the plague, Alina said, her voice cold with anger. They murdered 8 billion people. Luminara closed her eyes in pain. But why? My people never threatened them. We were healers, not warriors. Marcus pulled up economic records from before the plague. The Velaray's medical knowledge was the best in the galaxy. Your treatments were better and cheaper than anything the Krethian pharmaceutical companies could offer. You were destroying their profits. Trillions of credits were at stake. They killed a planet for money, Amara whispered. They killed an entire species for money. Alina clenched her fists. Now she understood why Inquisitor Thexarn was here. He was not just enforcing quarantine law. He was destroying evidence. If the Velarai all died, if the research facility was destroyed, no one would ever know the truth. We have to tell the galaxy, she said. Everyone needs to know what really happened here. Amara checked her equipment. The Krethians are jamming all long-range communications. I cannot send a message through the interference. The only way to broadcast would be to get close enough to use their own communication systems. Alina looked at the tactical display. The Krethian flagship hung in orbit above them, surrounded by dozens of warships. Getting close to it was suicide, but doing nothing was worse. She opened a channel to the Prometheus. Yuki, I need you to do something impossible. Yuki laughed, even as another explosion rocked her ship. Impossible is what I do, Captain. What do you need? The Krethian flagship. Its communication array. We need to broadcast Luminar's evidence to the entire galaxy. That means you need to get close enough to hijack their signal. There was a long pause. Then Yuki spoke again, her voice steady. That is a one-way trip, Captain. You know that? I know. Elena's voice cracked. I am so sorry, Yuki. I am asking too much. No. Yuki's response was immediate. You are asking exactly enough. Tell me when the data is ready. On the ground, Marcus and Luminara worked together to compile all the evidence. The genetic markers. The corporate records. The communications between Krethian officials. Everything that proved the plague was deliberate murder. Outside, something unexpected happened. An elderly Velarai woman walked to the center of the facility. Her body was frail, barely able to stand, but her eyes held ancient power. There is something I can do, she said. Something I hoped I would never need to do. She raised her hands, and her fading glow began to change, growing stronger, shifting to a different color. Deep beneath the planet's surface, something responded. Crystal spires across Valorith Prime began to pulse with light. Ancient defense systems, dormant for generations, came back to life. They could not destroy the Cretheon fleet, but they could create interference, disrupting their targeting systems, making their weapons less accurate. The Velari were not dying quietly. They were fighting back with everything they had left. In orbit, Inquisitor the Xarn watched his weapons miss their targets again and again. His cold face showed the first signs of anger. "Destroy that facility," he commanded. "Destroy everything. Leave nothing behind." The Crethean flagship began charging its main weapon, a beam of pure energy that could crack a planet's crust. One shot would vaporize the mountain and everyone inside it. While Ukea saw the weapon charging and made her decision. "Data received," Amara reported. "The evidence is compiled. Ready to transmit?" "Dimitri," Yuki said calmly, "prepare escape pods for everyone except me." "Yuki, no. That is an order. Get everyone off this ship." "I am going to finish this." The crew ejected in small pods, falling toward the planet's surface. Yuki was alone now, flying a damaged ship toward the most powerful vessel in the Cretheon fleet. The flagship's weapon reached full power, but before it could fire, the Prometheus slammed into its communication array. The impact was devastating. Both ships tore apart in a storm of fire and metal, but in that final moment, Yuki pressed the transmit button. Luminara's evidence burst across the galactic communication network. Every world, every station, every species in the galaxy received the truth at the same time. The Crethians had created the Shadow Blight. They had murdered the Velari for profit, and they had used galactic law to hide their crime in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime. Representatives watched the evidence in shocked silence. On 100 worlds, citizens stared at their screens in horror. The truth could not be hidden anymore. On the surface of Velarath Prime, Alina watched the sky light up with the explosion. She did not know if Yuki had survived. She did not know if the message had reached anyone, but in her heart she believed. Behind her, Marcus collapsed again. The procedure had taken too much from him. His body was failing. Luminara knelt beside him, and the other Velari gathered close. They began to glow together, combining their light into something greater. "We can save him," Luminara said, "the same way he saved us. But it will change him. Part of us will always be with him." Alina did not hesitate. "Do it. Save him." The Velari poured their light into Marcus, healing his damaged body, giving him strength he never had before. Human and Velari joined together in ways that had never been possible before. When it was done, Marcus opened his eyes. They glowed faintly, like starlight. "I can feel them," he whispered. "I can feel all of them." Zara held up a vial of clear liquid. "The cure is ready. We have enough for everyone here. And now that the galaxy knows the truth, maybe we can make more." Alina looked at the survivors around her, at the dying world outside, at the evidence spreading across the stars. They had done it. But the battle was not over yet. The galaxy abandoned them to die. Humans broke every law to rescue them. Part 5. The light they carried 3 days after the broadcast. The galaxy was still in chaos. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Assembly had erupted into accusations and demands. The Crethian representatives tried to deny everything, but the evidence was clear. Genetic markers, corporate communications, financial records. There was no escape from the truth. Species that had voted for the Extinction Protocol now demanded justice. The Crethian government collapsed as its leaders fled or faced arrest. Inquisitor the Xarn, who had survived the destruction of his flagship, was captured trying to escape the Velarath system in a stolen shuttle, and from Earth. A fleet of human ships arrived at Velarath Prime. They were not warships. They were medical vessels, cargo transports, and rescue ships. Humanity had launched them the moment the truth was broadcast. Breaking every speed record to reach the dying world, Captain Alina Vance stood at the entrance of the mountain facility, watching the ships descend through the atmosphere. Beside her stood Luminara, whose glow had grown stronger since the cure began spreading among the survivors. "You came back," Luminara said softly. Even after everything, you came back. Elena smiled. We never left. We just went to get reinforcements. The rescue operation was the largest in human history. Medical teams spread across the planet, treating survivors with the cure that Marcus had helped create. Engineers began repairing damaged infrastructure. Food and supplies flowed in from Earth, a dozen colony worlds. The Velari were not going to die alone anymore. 2 weeks later, Lena was called to testify before the Galactic Assembly. She arrived in the Great Hall with her crew, all except one. Yuki had survived the crash, ejecting at the last possible moment, but she was still recovering in a hospital on Earth. She had sent a message to be read at the hearing. Hi. Arbiter Kethvorin rose from his seat. The ancient being looked different now. Smaller somehow. Humbled. Captain Vance, he said, you and your crew violated quarantine law. You entered a forbidden zone. You engaged in combat with authorized enforcement vessels. Under our laws, you should face severe punishment. Lena stood straight and proud. Yes, we broke your laws, and we would do it again. A murmur spread through the assembly. Some voices were angry. Others were impressed. The High Arbiter continued. However, the evidence you provided has revealed a terrible truth. Our laws were used to commit genocide. We, the Assembly, nearly became accomplices to murder on a scale we cannot comprehend. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was heavy with shame. The extinction protocol has been suspended. The quarantine of Velarath Prime is lifted, and this assembly owes humanity an apology. You saw injustice, and you refused to accept it. You showed us what we had forgotten. Laws should serve justice, not replace it. Ambassador Okonkwo rose from her seat. She did not gloat or condemn. Instead, she spoke simply from the heart. My people did not do this to embarrass the assembly, she said. We did it because we believe that every life has value. Human, Velari, Krethion, or any other species. When we see innocent people suffering, we cannot look away. That is not weakness. That is what makes civilization worth having. The assembly voted again that day. This time, they voted unanimously to provide aid to Velarath Prime. They voted to hold the Krethion conspirators accountable. And they voted to create new laws that would prevent such tragedies from happening again. Humanity had not just saved the Velari, they had changed the galaxy. 6 months later, Velarath Prime was beginning to heal. The crystal cities were still dark, but small lights had begun to appear again. Survivors were returning to their homes, rebuilding what they could. The scars would take generations to fade, but there was hope now. Real hope. Dr. Marcus Chen had become the first permanent human ambassador to the Velari. The healing ritual had changed him in ways he was still discovering. He could feel the emotions of Velari nearby, sense their thoughts at the edges of his mind. He was no longer fully human, but he was something new. Something beautiful. Luminara often walked with him through the recovering cities, teaching him about her people's history and culture. In turn, he taught her about Earth, about humanity's long journey to the stars. Why do you think your species is different? She asked him one evening as twin moons rose over the silver forests. Other species are older, more advanced, but they accepted the extinction protocol without question. Why did humans refuse? Marcus thought about this for a long time. I think it is because we are young, he finally said. We have not been in space long enough to forget what it feels like to be alone and afraid. We remember what it is like to struggle, to fight for survival against impossible odds. When we saw your people suffering, we saw ourselves. Luminara smiled, her glow warming his face. Then perhaps youth is not such a bad thing. On Earth, Captain Elena Vance turned down every promotion and honor the government offered her. She had no interest in medals or titles. Instead, she requested a new ship and a new mission. The Prometheus II was built by humans and Velari working together. It combined the best of both species' technology. Faster engines, better shields, medical facilities that could treat any known disease, and a crew of humans and Velari who had sworn to serve together. Elena's mission was simple. Travel the galaxy. Find people who need help, and never, ever abandon them. Her old crew joined her without hesitation. Yuki, fully recovered, took her place at the helm. Dmitri checked every system twice before declaring the ship ready. Amara set up communication arrays that could cut through any interference. Zara stocked the medical bay with supplies from a dozen worlds, and on the day they launched, Marcus and Luminara came to see them off. "Thank you," Luminara said, embracing Alina like a sister, "for everything you gave us." Lena hugged her back. "Thank you for showing us what we could become." The Prometheus II lifted off into the darkness, its engines glowing with blue and purple light. Human and Velari colors combined. Years passed. The story of humanity's rescue mission became legend across the galaxy. Young children of every species grew up hearing about the humans who broke every law to save strangers. The tale was told in 100 languages, but the meaning was always the same. When the galaxy abandons you, look for the humans. They will come. On a restored Valorith Prime, in a crystal city that glowed brighter than ever before. Velari children gathered to hear the old stories. They asked their elders about the dark time when their people almost died, and the elders told them about the humans. They told them about Captain Vance, who flew into certain death without hesitation. About Dr. Chen, who let himself be infected to save strangers. About Yuki, who sacrificed her ship to spread the truth. About every human who risked everything for people they had never met. Why did they do it? The children asked. Why did they come for us when no one else would? The elders smiled, remembering the light in Elena's eyes when she first took off her helmet on the dying world. Because that is what humans do, they said. When they see people in pain, they cannot look away. When they see injustice, they cannot stay silent. When they see innocent lives about to be lost, they run toward the danger instead of away from it. Is that why we are friends with them now? Yes, and we always will be. Far across the stars, the Prometheus II responded to another distress call. Another world in trouble. Another species abandoned by those who should have protected them. On the bridge, Captain Alina Vance looked at her crew. Humans and Velari stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. You know the drill, she said with a smile. Let's go be impossible. The ship jumped too faster than light speed, carrying hope to those who had none, and across the galaxy. Species who had once dismissed humanity as young and naive began to understand the truth. Humans were not reckless. They were not foolish. They simply refused to accept that some lives were not worth saving. They had looked at the cold equations of galactic law and said no. They had looked at impossible odds and said try anyway. They had looked at abandoned people and said, we are coming. That was humanity's gift to the stars, not technology. Not weapons. Not wealth. Just a simple, stubborn refusal to let go. Of hope. Of each other. Of anyone who needed them. The galaxy had laws that said some people were not worth saving. Humans broke every single one. And in doing so, they reminded the stars what civilization was supposed to mean.